Okay, this chapter is about family businesses and buyouts. And family businesses, that's what the word says, a business that's owned by a family. And buyouts is when you buy another business, whether it's a family business or not, just in general. So what's a family business? A family is a group of people bound by a shared history and commitment to share a future together while supporting the development and well-being of individual members. So the purpose of a family business is usually to provide a better life for the family or financial sources for the family, right? A family business is an organization in which either the individual who established or acquired the firm or their descendants significantly influence the strategic decisions and life course of the firm. So I know some of you may have, I do get a lot of students who grow up with a family business and they're, they learn a lot when they're growing up in and around a family business. So, okay, so categories, there are of family business: owner-managed businesses, a venture operated by a founding entrepreneur. So a family member in a family founded a company, opened a business, right? And started managing the business. There are sibling partnerships, a business in which children of the founder become owners or managers. Maybe the parents, maybe the mother started the business, and at one point she decides she wants to retire and to turn over the business to the children, and now the siblings go into a partnership and own the business together. There's something called cousin consortium, a business in the third and subsequent generation when children of the siblings take ownership and management positions. So going out to even the third level, right? So the three-circle model of family business there are the family members, the employees, and the owners that are involved in a family business. And employees are not always just family members. Depending on the size of the business, you can have a family business where only employees work, but very likely that you're also going to have non-family members who are not employees, right? And then you can also have non-family owners, by the way, a family member, employee or not, a family member owner, an employee owner, and so forth, right? So you see where they kind of overlap, right? A family member, owner, and employee would be what 7 represents, the highest level of involvement in a family business, right? Yeah. Advantages and disadvantages of a family business. Advantages are many promote the family's values to set themselves apart from competitors. Buyers sometimes like to buy from family businesses for different reasons. Number one, they're local, and number two, they're sometimes very personable, and families take huge pride in owning their businesses and satisfying their customers and keeping their good reputation, right? They convey a sense of tradition and achievement to relatives who are considering joining the firm, and to non-family employees also, not just customers, to become part of the story. Potential disadvantages: conflict may arise among family members, right? And then nepotism is meaning favoring your relatives over non-relatives, right? Or whether you're just employing your relatives or whether you are favoring the ones that are your relatives, the employees that are your relatives over the employees that are not your relatives. That can cause a lot of friction in a business. Positives and negatives. Again, positives: family members are usually more trustworthy, or should be. Loyalty to the family is by those within the firm. Commitment, knowledge among extended family members, long-range thinking by leaders of the firm, and close communication among family members. This is, of course, in a best case scenario. I'm not saying all family businesses are like that. It doesn't have to be. But because family has some other moral obligations towards each other, a lot of times it can be this way, right? Negatives is sometimes you have mistrust by non-family employees, right? Lack of loyalty by family members not directly involved in the business, those could be resentful. Sense of entitlement by the succeeding generation. Lack of knowledge among family members outside the firm, because that's all they know. They've only worked in the family business. Demand for instant gratifications from those that feel entitled, and failure to communicate across generations with family not involved in the firm. So those could be some. There are different types of family business. Co-entrepreneurs are couples who own and manage a business. Advantages: opportunity to work with someone you really trust and to share more of your lives together. Disadvantages is different of opinion about business matters can carry over into family life, and the energy of both parties may be so spent by working long hours and in a struggling company that little zest remains for a strong family life, and there can be too much togetherness. And I can give you an example with that. I started a business with my ex-husband. When my daughter was born, the company I was working for was also doing layoffs, so I was laid off, and shortly after, my then husband got also laid off. Instead of trying to find another job, we decided we're going to start a business because he was so good. He was an IT guy, right? He was so good at what he was doing, right? So we started a business, and we started offering IT services. We started offering hosting services, dedicated server hosting, and all kinds of stuff, right? And our companies were small companies. I mean, our customers were small companies. But yes, we trusted each other. We're not going to screw each other over. We had a great relationship, right? But yes, we were together at work all day. We had an office, and then we went home together, and we were still together. And you know, when we were busy, we were both exhausted, and we didn't really talk about the business when we came home, but there was a little bit of too much togetherness. But the other part that was really hard is different opinions about the business, right? Because I wanted to do it by the book, because I studied business, and I was like a little bit snobbish about it. This is how business is done. And he was a techie, but he thought he knew about business, and he wanted to do it a different way. So anyway, we decided not to do the business together, and that's when I started teaching. And he kept the business for a long time, right? He still has it today. But we still stayed married for, after that, we still stayed married another 15 years, I think, right? So it did not affect our relationship, but I just wanted to give you that example. Anyway, parents as founders, entrepreneurs take various approaches to prepare successors in the next generation for ownership and leadership, demonstrating the founder's commitment to both business and family through both actions and works. And that kind of communicates the values of the founders. The family values are very present in the business. Supporting entrepreneurial behavior by the children, letting them take calculated risks, and encouraging them to learn from failure, and teaching them resilience. Supporting educational efforts towards skills for leading the business in the future, and helping the children recognize that rules and responsibilities have their place both in business and in real life. So, children that grow up in family businesses do certainly get exposed to a lot of business nuances and successes, right? So children, experts recommend introducing children to the family firm at an early age. It could be as simple as having children stuff envelopes or something like that, right? In the entrepreneurial family, the natural tendency may be to push a child either openly or subtly in the direction of the family business without considering the child's talent, aptitude, and temperament. This could be a problem. Maybe the child doesn't want to be involved at all. They shouldn't be pushed. Maybe they want to do something completely different with their lives, right? In a society that values the right of the individual to choose their own career, if this value is embraced by the child, then he or she must be granted the freedom to select a career of their own choosing. Non-family members in a firm often discover that they have limited opportunity in the family firms because they are just not part of the family, right? The leader of a family-owned enterprise might decide to bring in a non-family member as an executive with the firm for the following reasons: to bridge the gap between generations, to set a new direction, or to deal with change, or to provide new skills or expertise, or to bring real management skills in. Sometimes family businesses are run by people who have never really learned any management skills. So It's smart to bring in somebody from the outside. Okay, that's about family businesses. Now, next topic is buying an existing business. So reasons for buying an existing business. You can start a business from scratch with nothing there. You basically have a blank sheet, or you can buy a business that's already in existence and that's already running, right? The decision involves a series of investment of funds and careful consideration of advantages and disadvantages. Four reasons why people might decide to buy an existing business is to reduce some of the uncertainties that go with starting a business from the ground up. Just like when you're establishing a franchise, there's less risk. When you're buying an existing business, there's also less risk. Of course, provided the business has been running and been profitable, right? And it's your job to make sure of that. To acquire a business with ongoing operations and establish relationships with customers or suppliers. They already have customers. They already have suppliers they're buying from, right? To obtain an established business at a price below what it would cost to start a new business or to buy a franchise. So if it's a more advantageous to buy a business at that price, provided it is lower than starting from scratch and provided that it's lower than a franchise, right? And to get into business more quickly than by starting from scratch. Starting from scratch has a lot of build-up time, right? Imagine you have a Lego set and you're building a store with a Lego set. You have just a flat surface with nothing. It takes time to build it, right? Before you even put the little people inside, right? So, but when you buy an existing business, the building is already there. Investing in evaluating available businesses, you have to do your due diligence and be really, really careful and really examine what you're buying. A buyer needs to acquire background information about the business, some of which can be obtained through personal observations or discussions with a seller or documentation. For example, you have to also examine their accounting records, their contracts, and then talk to their suppliers, their bankers, employees, and customers if you can, right? Other parties besides just the seller of the business, because the seller of the business is going to be biased and only going to give you great information, right? Trying to convince you to buy their business. Relying on professionals, a buyer should seek the help of outside experts, especially accountants and lawyers. So accountants will look at the accounting records and lawyers at the contracts. Finding out why the business is for sale. Why would somebody sell a really successful business for a good price? There are a lot of reasons. Maybe they want to start a different business. Maybe they want to retire and the children don't want to work. Maybe they just, I don't know, won the jackpot or something like that, right? But the seller's real reason may not be the stated ones. So find out why. A buyer cannot be certain that the seller owner will be honest in presenting all the facts honestly, right? So that's why you also really, really need to do your due diligence and get some, and talk to third parties and also get professionals. Examining financial data, companies' financial statements, tax returns. Tax returns are really key because you can't, or you shouldn't lie on your tax returns, right? For 5 years or longer. As both a legal and ethical matter, the prospective buyer may expect to sign a non-disclosure agreement. In other words, what a non-disclosure agreement is, after they let you examine, you can still change your mind, but you're not going to share that information with anybody else, right? Whatever you find out, you promise not to say that, share that information. Other factors, non-quantitative factors, the market. You have to look at the market. What market is the business operating in? You probably would not want to buy a franchise right now that rents DVDs because there's no market for it, right? Competition, how much competition is there? And especially at the specific location. If you want to buy let's say a Chinese restaurant, and there are already 3 other Chinese restaurants in the same block, you probably want to think twice if you want to do that. Legal commitments. What about any contracts or unsettled lawsuits or old tax payments that they still owe, right? Union contracts. It could be, even though not very common for small companies, but they can be in agreement with the employees and the union, right? Physical facilities, conditions, and the restrictions of access. Product prices, comparison of seller prices with catalog prices and competition prices as well, which is not listed here. So those are other factors you need to consider. And then negotiating and closing the deal, the purchase price of this business, you have to negotiate it, right, with the seller. In some cases, the buyer might have the option of purchasing the assets only rather than the business as a whole. Purchasing the assets, meaning you only purchase the equipment and supplies. You don't purchase anything else. No, other values added, right? It's an asset. In that case, you do an asset valuation. You look at how much are the assets worth, and that's what you buy, right? Because you would do that when you want to do something different with a business, right? In negotiation purchase terms, the buyer may be unable to pay the full price in cash and must seek extended terms, often through a lender, so they might need a loan. As with the purchase of real estate, the purchase of a business is closed at a specific time, and the title company or attorney usually handles the closing. So it takes some time to close the deal, right? Documents that you do, it's a bill of sale, tax and other government forms, agreements regarding future payments and related guarantees to the seller, right? Buyer then applies for new federal and tax ID numbers to avoid being held responsible for past obligations. So that it's a new business, it's a new tax ID, right? Whenever you do business, even if it's a family business or even just an individual business, it's advisable to always have a separate tax ID number for the business rather than using your social security number, just to keep it separate, right? And then have your own business license and things like that. Anyway, that was it for buyouts and family businesses. Let me stop the recording.